be the greatest version of themselves, no matter what they choose to do. And that kind of just stuck. It was just like, be the greatest you, like whatever that looks like for you, be the greatest that, in the moment. Because right now, with you, I have to, if I'm right here and you on this podcast, you have to be the greatest podcast host.
Mm-hmm.
But once you leave, you're gonna go and you're gonna put on another hat.
Right.
At that moment, you got to be the greatest version of yourself when you're playing that particular role.
Facts.
And then when you
Facts.
stop doing that, you got to play another role.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like whatever you choose to do, be the greatest.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Welcome back to the Identify Your Lane podcast, where we interview guests who have mastered their lane and we discuss how did they know that the path that they are on was the right path for them, for the sole purpose of helping you, the guest, identify your lane so that you can go and become a master of your lane. I am your host, Daniel Truelove Jr., and I'm so excited about the guest that I have for you all today. I met this man in Atlanta. We recently went to a conference with Jeremy Anderson called the Next Level Speakers Conference. And my man won the Perseverance Award for all the different things that he's gone through and overcome the adversity that he's been going through, but also for all the things that he's doing within his career. Man, this man is a powerful, powerful dude. Man, when I heard him speak, I literally left and I was like, yo, I got to connect with this dude right now. And I knew for a fact that I had to bring the information that he was going to be talking about to you all tonight. So I'm excited to bring none other than my guest, Ydrates Nelson, to the stage. Ydrates, man, how's everything going with you tonight, man?
Man, everything is going beautiful with me tonight, and it's a pleasure to be here today.
Oh man, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited, man. Like I was saying, man, you have a powerful voice, man. This dude, like his voice just comes across like so strong, man. And not only just the voice, but also the words that come out as well, man. And he has a story that I believe is important to share. And so the first thing I want to do is start by this, man. Introduce yourself for the individuals that have not had an opportunity to meet you yet. Introduce us to the people.
My name is Ydrate Nelson. I am the owner and founder of Ydrate Nelson and Associates, also Be the Greatest University. I specialize in motivational speaking, education consulting, and greatness life coaching. I help teachers, students, and working professionals develop strategies to maximize their greatness. Over the last 10 years,
Mm.
I've worked in education from everything from University of Phoenix, Grand Canyon. Most
Mm.
recently, I was a high school teacher, believe it or not, for the
Okay.
last 4 years, I do believe. I actually won the Teacher of the Year for 2020. So school and education is something that is near and dear to my heart, but
Mhm.
also inspiring and motivating and encouraging people is something that is near and dear to my heart. I've seen a lot of adversity, a lot of hardship, and a lot of pain, and I've seen a lot of people overcome a lot of those things. So it really
Mhm.
inspires me and motivates me. So that's one thing that drives me is encouraging other people to uh, to face whatever challenge they're going through head on and overcome it. So that's one thing that kind of drives me is empowering other people.
All right, awesome, man, awesome, man,
So
and
that's
super dope, man. You in Arizona, man. I lived in Arizona for 11 years, and that was another thing that we had in common as well. You're out there on the west side of Arizona, and I was on the East Valley. But man, when you said you was from AZ, I was like, oh man, that's dope, man. I was out there for a long time, man. So definitely excited just to be able to dive in more into the work that you're doing. And so I want to start here with this. Like when you hear this terminology, identify your lane, what comes to mind when you hear that?
purpose.
Mm.
The word purpose. Well, a lot of us can't reach our personal greatness because we're operating outside of our lane.
Mm.
So if you are able to identify what your lane is, then you could be more in sync with what your purpose is. And
Mm.
if more people operated in their authentic purpose, we'll have a higher quality society because more people will be doing what they love. And if they said if you do what you love for a living, then it's not work at all. So if everybody
Mm.
was operating in their purpose and we were fulfilling our purpose and we were operating within our own lane, I think that society as a whole would just be a more balanced, holistically for all of us. So, but when we operate outside of our lane, it's almost like forcing yourself to do something you don't really want to do, or something that's outside of your purpose.
I
So
love that.
purpose is
Yeah, I think purpose is one of those things because that's really what this is all about is helping people understand what their purpose is. Recognizing their gifts. I think that's a huge part in understanding your purpose because those gifts are kind of calling out to us and saying, hey, this is what you're good at. This is what you do without any type of, effort. It just comes naturally to us. But a lot of times we end up going in directions that are outside of our gifting for a lot of different reasons. But kind of with that being said, you've already introduced what you do with motivational speaking and educational consulting. And so, what exactly is that? For somebody that doesn't know what an educational consultant is, never knew that even existed. Like, break that down for us. What the heck is that?
well, personally, me, one thing I specialize in is working with teachers because I've spent the last 4 years in the classroom as a teacher.
Okay.
So I've identified things that work, I've identified things that haven't. I literally went from a part-time substitute
Mm.
to the teacher of the year.
Oh wow.
And now that I'm outside of the environment, I'm able to quantize everything that I went through and able to say, hey, these are the things that I think that we could use in the environment based upon my experiences
Mm.
that we could use to enhance the quality of education. So as an educational consultant, I try to find strategic ways to help motivate, encourage, empower teachers so that way they can go on to be able to empower our students. Because while
Mm.
students only make up 20% of the population, they make up 100% of our future. So my goal
Mm.
is to service the education industry in the way that will allow teachers to have additional resources, additional encouragement, additional empowerment, so they can pass that on to our students.
Mm.
Because if teachers don't have the additional support they need, then it's going to be difficult for them to maximize the potential of our students. So it's really about empowering teachers to maximize the potential of our students, so our students could maximize the potential of our society. So
That's
one thing
awesome.
I try to do is offer workshops for teachers, and then also motivational speeches and things like that for the students. And I always try to push the same message, which is be the greatest.
All right.
And for students, the goal is to be the greatest student.
Mm.
For teachers, the goal is to be the greatest teacher. For
Mm.
the administration is to be the greatest administration. And everybody has a role with making schools and society be the greatest. So we all have to figure out, what does that look like? What does it mean to be the greatest student? What does it mean
Right.
to be the greatest teacher? What does it mean to be the greatest administrator? So through my programming, I try to teach people, what does that look like and what does that mean, and how we can leverage that understanding to create a better society for us all.
Okay. So you said you've been in education. You said you spent 10 years in that. How did
Mhm.
you get into education and what was the kind of desire for hopping into education in the first place?
I got into education kind of by default.
Mm.
To be honest, I actually transferred with Bank of America. I was in banking, and I transferred with Bank of America from Atlanta to Phoenix.
Oh, okay.
And this was around the time when the financial crisis happened.
Mm.
A lot of crazy stuff was happening in the banking industry. And then in my mind, I was thinking like, all right, financial crisis, the banking industry is taking a huge hit.
Mm.
A lot of people losing their job. So if they're losing jobs, what are people going to do? They're going to go back to school. They're going to get into education. So
Facts.
I shifted from finance into adult education, and I started working with the University of Phoenix. And then
No
once I started
way.
yeah, I started
Mm.
working with the University of Phoenix. And then they gave us that complimentary education, so
Mm-hmm.
I was able to go back and pick up my master's degree in adult education and corporate training. And then after working as an enrollment advisor and just working in that environment for about 5, 6, 7 years or something along those lines,
Mm-hmm.
um, I transitioned from there into high school education. And then it just became kind of a cultural thing for me. It's like education is not what I do, it's kind of like who I am.
Mm.
We're always learning in our house. So education is a cultural thing. It's like it's part of our family structure. My wife has, I think, like 4 degrees.
Oh wow.
You
That's
see,
a
she has a bachelor's, 2 masters, and a doctorate.
dang.
So yeah, so we push education. My daughter She skipped kindergarten. She went straight to the first grade because she was already reading on like a second grade level in kindergarten.
Mm,
So education is like part of our family fabric. So it's kind of
yeah,
like what we do. So for me to work in it, it's kind of like a natural thing because
yeah.
it's not what I do, it's who I am in a
Gotcha.
sense.
Yeah, I think that's super dope. And I didn't know that we actually had this in common as well, man. I actually worked in the online education space for 10 years. Yeah. So not with UOP, but there's a couple other institutions, out there in
Hmm.
Arizona that I work with as well, man. And that's dope, man, because the online education space is huge, especially when you
Hmm.
think about, being in it 10 years ago. Like I said, I started in that space in 2010, I believe. And so
Hmm.
that was a heavy in my background too, was like, not just enrollment advice, but also, upper level management, training and development and things like that. So
Hmm.
we took similar paths that I didn't even know about when it comes to not only career wise, but also then I became a substitute in the Phoenix school district as well. And that was kind of what
Wow.
I did. Yeah, man. So that's crazy. I was in like the what is it like downtown like damn, what is the district
The
called?
Phoenix Junior High School.
Phoenix Junior. So
Hey man, you know what? The Phoenix Junior High School district is actually where I got to be the greatest mantra from was
really,
because yeah, because there's this school in the Phoenix Junior District called well, I mean, I don't want to just call the name of the school out, but it's an alternative school
mm,
within the district.
okay,
So it's like if you get kicked out of the other schools, then you go to this particular school.
mm-hmm,
I had a great relationship with some of the teachers and administrators who were there, so that I would always go service that school. So this one particular day, she says, "Hey, we want you to come talk to our students."
mm,
And me being in the higher education space,
right,
I would always push higher education, go to
mm-hmm,
college, and I felt like the higher, you know. But when I was going to this particular school, I knew that they only had very few students who had gone to college before because they were
mm,
kicked out of regular school. So if I walked in and I started talking this go to college talk, it's going to
yeah,
turn a lot of those kids out. They weren't really trying to hear that. They weren't going to
facts,
college.
mm-hmm,
So my whole mindset was whatever you decide to do, just be the greatest at it. Like
mm,
if you decide that you're gonna um clean toilets, be the
right,
greatest at that. If you
right,
decide
right,
that, because and now that I think about it, we just had, some toilets installed in our house, right?
mm-hmm,
I bought them. The dude came in and installed them. He charged me $200 a piece.
mm, wow,
I was I was cool with it. I was like, cool, just get them installed. It's a
right,
hassle.
right,
One of them clogged up, it ain't working. So for me, $600. He was out of here in less than 2 hours.
mm, that's $300 an hour.
Bro, he was gone. So for me, the
Yeah,
mindset is it don't matter what you're doing, it's like be the greatest version of that. If you're gonna install toilets, be the greatest toilet installer of all time.
mm-hmm,
Because you can be very successful at that. Because that $600 is more than a lot of people gonna make for their job working 40 hours.
right, that's
You
true,
know what I mean?
that's
So
very
it,
true,
it actually came from going to that school, just encouraging the students to be the greatest version of themselves, no matter what they choose to do. And that kind of just stuck. It was just like be the greatest you, like whatever that looks like for you, be the greatest that, in the moment. Because right now, with you, I have to if I'm right here and you on this podcast, you have to be the greatest podcast host.
mm-hmm,
But once you leave, you're gonna go and you're gonna put on another hat.
right,
At that moment, you got to be the greatest version of yourself when you're playing that particular role.
facts,
And then when you
facts,
stop doing that, you got to play another role.
mm-hmm,
So it's like whatever you choose to do, be the greatest. And that ideology, the point that kind of stuck, started with servicing an alternative school in the Phoenix Union District, encouraging those students not to be limited by what people say that you have to be, but find out what you want to be and being the greatest version of that. No matter what it is, just be the
mm.
greatest version of it.
I love that. I love that because that's so relevant. Like that you can't there's nothing that you can do in life to where that mantra you can't take that with you. You know what I'm saying? So it's relevant to pretty much everything. And so the question I have for you now is this is that so you were in the school districts. Tell me about your journey with education after you left University of Phoenix and then what did you go do and what was that journey like for you?
Man, I left University of Phoenix and I started working for myself. And I was actually getting contracts. I was servicing different corporate organizations,
Mm,
speaker training, sales training, just different stuff like that. And then I also had this little POS system where I would service businesses with the
Mm.
point of sale service. So it'll be a lot of businesses who were just brick and mortar, but they haven't really converted into, taking all forms of digital payment. So I would go in and
Gotcha.
service those businesses. So I got into that. And as I was doing that, I started to develop my own leadership academy.
Mm.
As I was developing my leadership academy, I said I wanted to add in a youth leadership academy. So I'm going to start substitute teaching on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and on the other 5 days a week, I'll just work for myself. So this was a
Gotcha.
way for me to get into the school, learn what was going on, get experience, and then not really miss money for that day at the same time. So it's almost
Okay.
like, you know, getting information that I could use to turn around and service the schools.
Right.
And the best way that I could get information was through infiltration. So I was trying to
Mm.
infiltrate the schools to get the information
Yeah.
to build my business to come back and service the schools.
Gotcha.
And I was doing it through substitute teaching, right?
Mm.
So one day, and I would rotate schools, so I would never stay at the same school. So I never
Right.
had an attachment. So the district was big, and they had like 6 schools. So I would just rotate schools. I would never, duplicate. Just every day,
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday I'm here, Thursday I'm there. One day I'm at this one school, and the principal came to me and he says, "Hey man, you substitute teaching here today?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And he says, "Man, I have this situation I think that you'll be perfect for." And then he said, "Have you ever considered teaching full time?" I was like, "No, I haven't."
Mm.
And he says, "Well, I think you'll be great for this. I seem like you, and then I said, "What class is it?" And then I said, "Oh man, it's the class I'm going to today." And then I said, "You know what? I'll
Mm.
check it out and I'll see." I told him I'd date the situation for 2 weeks and I'd consider it. And at the end of 2 weeks, I told him that I would give him my answer. So I walked into the classroom. It was the craziest thing I ever saw. Nobody told me that 2 teachers had already quit. Nobody told me that no substitute
Mm.
would take that class at all. They'll be like, "I'll take any class except for that class."
Mm.
They didn't tell me that teachers had to give up their prep period to come watch this class because substitutes didn't even want to take it. It was like
Dang.
they couldn't find no substitutes to take it. So when I walked in the class, it was total chaos. It was crazy. It was
Mm.
like a movie, scene. It was just chaotic. I didn't have
Mm.
books. I didn't have a computer. I didn't have anything. It was just like me, these students. I didn't even know the subject. It was science. Man, I didn't know nothing about science. So, I just told them that, like, listen, man, hey, I'm here. I'm gonna be honest. I'm here just like y'all. I don't really have a lot of resources, but I tell you this, we're gonna figure it out together. And I just told
Mm.
every class that, man, we're gonna figure this thing out together. And after 2 weeks was up, I made up my mind. I was like, I ain't doing this. It's crazy.
Mm.
It's crazy. I said
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do it. And I told the principal that morning that I wasn't gonna do it. I told him that morning.
Mm.
I told him no. I started looking for other opportunities. I was like, nah, I'm good. He came by my classroom just kind of check, see how things was going.
Right.
Class was going good, but I was like, I don't think I'm gonna do this. Thank you.
Yeah.
But at lunch that day, man, something happened though. The worst class that I had all day. This Hispanic student, man, he's graduated now. His name is Miguel Colon. He came in the classroom and he just hugged me. And he says, "Man," he says, "I know you just got here, and it's hard to. A lot of people say it's too early to say this, but you're the coolest teacher I ever had in my life." And then he was like,
Mm.
"Man," he's like, "I'm glad. I actually like coming to class now." And he went and
Wow.
sat down. And then the last student came in. We called him Turtle. Always late, slow. Dominic Thomas is his name.
Oh
Dominic came
wow.
in. He said, "Man, Mr. Nelson, it feels so good to have a teacher who cool, who got swag, who know what's going on." He was like, "Bro, I'm so glad you're here. I don't even know what to do." And he just bear hugged me, picked me up, put me in the.
Mm.
He shrugged off. He just went and sat down. And then in that moment, I says, "Oh man, being here ain't even about me. It's really about the student.
Mm.
It's about the
Yeah.
student that I'm called to serve. And if I make it about me, then I'm gonna do this situation a disservice because the students already had a lot of people who quit on them.
Right.
And if I do quit on them the same way that they saw everybody else, then I'm just gonna confirm probably what they're thinking. But if I
Mm.
stay, then I could break, this probably what they thinking, like everybody gonna quit on them in this
Yeah.
situation. So
Yeah.
I stuck it out. And by the end of the year, man, I started, I didn't even have anything. I didn't have no resources. I didn't have a syllabus. I ain't have nothing. But by the end of the year, my students were competing with the other students in the district in terms of where their knowledge base was. Even though I knew nothing about the subject, I didn't have any resources. I didn't have anything. I just figured it out. I'm from Dublin, Georgia, man. We used to grow our own food. When people say they
Mm.
got it out the mud, man, we literally got it out the mud, like for
Facts.
real.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's find a way or make a way. It's never an excuse not to make it happen. So we just got in the mud and we got it out of the mud and we made it happen. So after that school year was over, I said, man, if I did this with no resources, no nothing, and I was able to make it happen, what would happen if I started at the beginning of the year, had a
Mm,
full year,
right.
and then I was able to. So then I went on and I won the science teacher of the semester.
Dang,
And
that's
then,
dope.
yeah, that was I think I won that in 2018. And
Mm.
then 2019, I won the difference maker was, I think it's over there, the difference maker award. That's why I met Jeremy Anderson at
Oh, okay.
2019
Okay.
at the difference maker award. 2020, I won the teacher of the year. And
Mm.
then now 2021, I just won the Perseverance Award from the Next Level Speakers Academy.
Man, that's
But
dope,
all
man.
of that, it all goes back to just BTG, be the greatest at whatever it is that you choose to do. Is just
Mm.
committing wholeheartedly to it and going all in.
Yeah, I want to sort of highlight what you said about it was bigger than you, because I think a lot of times in life we can be very selfish with what we decide to do. I mean, I can just think personally, I mean, this is what I want to do. This is what I think will be good for, me and my family. But is that necessarily the right thing for me to do? Even as it comes to this podcast, man, this podcast has been something that I've had an idea about for a while, and I let other things, compete with that priority versus doing the things that I knew that I should be doing, or those things that I felt, called and led to do. And I love the fact that you said, man, when they came in there, you had already said no beforehand, but then you reversed, tread and said, you know what, because of this, I'm actually going to stick around because it's much bigger than just me being in this classroom. Like their future is on the line, and you felt some obligation to make sure that they knew that there were individuals out there that were there for them, that would stick by them, that wouldn't quit on them. And I'm pretty sure that probably changed the trajectory of a lot of those kids' lives.
Yeah, because my ego said no, but my purpose said yes. So
That's a
I
bar.
had to, yeah, I had to really step back and look at the impact, because it was like, if you really say that you want to speak and you really want to speak and you really want to
Mm-hmm.
service people, then it's really about the impact. It's not
Yeah.
about the money. It's right. It's about the impact. So if I was gonna bypass the opportunity to have impact, because what I'm looking for, a bigger opportunity to have impact. You know what I mean?
Mm,
It's like you gotta take care of what you got if you
yeah.
want to expect to get more. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I always tell my kids this, like my kids blessed. Like from where I came from, man, I grew up in Dublin. We grew our own food. You know what I mean? So it was
Yeah.
like, that was just, and it wasn't like a poor thing. It was just like reality. So my kids now, man, they don't know anything about that, and I try to teach them, those things. Take care of what you got,
Mm-hmm.
the little things that you have, and you'll get more. But if you can't take care of the little thing that you have, then I can't really, you can't expect me to go spend my money or
Yeah.
to invest in something more. So that's kind of how it was. Like, take care of these students here, and then learn what you need to learn how to nurture them, and then take
Mm-hmm.
the experiences that you have from this experience, and then now you can take that into the consulting business.
Right.
But if I had not gone through what I've gone through in the classroom, how could I go out here and service the teaching industry
Right.
if I didn't go from a part-time substitute to teacher of the year?
Right.
If I didn't have to sit in all these IEP meetings and meet with parents and go through all of these different things. So for me, it's like you got to go through it. I always say this about everything: you got to go through it to get to it, and there's no way
Yeah.
around it. So that's
So
kind of.
So the question I have for you is because I come from a family of educators as well, and so my sister, she works in a school that is similar to the school in which you're talking about now. What would you say to individuals that are educators and they are in the not so sexy schools? The schools to where it's a little bit more difficult for them to, whether it be resources or lack of resources, probably better terminology, lack of resources, whether it be just conduct and things like that. What is it that you did to transform the culture in your classroom? And what specifically would you say to other individuals that are actually designed to do those things in their education career?
I think that the adversity that we face as educators is like part of the process. And to be honest, a lot of the noise outside of my classroom was what made me focus more on my actual classroom, because I would
Mm.
get overwhelmed by trying to entertain what I didn't have, or entertain what wasn't there, or entertain the support that I didn't have, or entertain the book that I didn't have. So it's like, okay, what's the mission? What's the purpose here? What purpose am I serving? So once I served the purpose, anything that didn't serve that purpose then became a distraction.
Yeah.
And once I realized that the purpose was to make sure that my students got what they needed to go to the next level, because they couldn't really do anything with my excuses. Like if I came to them and say, well, I can't teach y'all today because I don't have a book, then I've just done them a disservice. But
Yeah.
if I come to class and I say, you know what, guys, we don't have books, we don't have this, we don't have that, but you know what, regardless, this is what we're going to do. We
Yep.
about to go outside, we about to go to the track, we about to go throw the football, we about to measure velocity using the football, we about to go to
Mm.
call up the gym and see if we can't shoot basketball to be able to judge velocity. We're going to use the tennis ball. So for me, it was like, it gave me the opportunity to show up in a bigger way.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I have these things that I always say in the classroom, that every school is perfect. The
Hmm.
administration is perfect. And teachers look at me like I'm crazy. They say stuff about administration. I say, man, administration is perfect.
Mm.
I said, because if I look at it any other way, then it takes the
Yep.
responsibility off me, and it
Yep.
allows me to blame them for something that's not
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yep.
Versus me just saying, I'm going to get it done regardless. So whatever the responsibility, the adversity that's given to me, is supposed to come to me, and I'm supposed to handle it, because I know that it's a transferable skill in
Right.
that situation. You know,
Got you. So,
you know.
so
So
question I have for you is this: like for those individuals, like some individuals understand the landscape of education, of high school education, particularly because they're in it. But there are individuals that don't necessarily understand what it's like in these classrooms. So, can you elaborate on like what is it like being in the classroom when it comes to having a lack of resources, when it comes to not having all the things, when it comes to administration, like what are the teachers really going through so that people out there that are, just sending their kids off to school and not really thinking about that, how can they get a better grasp about like what you all are actually dealing with?
now I do want to say this, that the my last school, I was super blessed, to
Okay.
be honest. Now I'm gonna be honest. The last school that I just left, it's $110 million high school that's less than a mile from my house.
Oh, wow.
I had a state of the art classroom. I taught digital media marketing and business. I mean, I had a green room in my classroom. I had
Mm,
cameras. So my last situation was, I could not have asked for a more ideal situation in the education space,
mm,
which is a far cry from where I started from, though.
right.
So I started from a situation where I went from the oldest school in the district to the newest school in the district.
Mm,
So I was able to see both ends of the spectrum.
right.
One school was 100 years old, and the other school was brand new. It was so new that we only opened up half of the school, because it wasn't even done. It was half school and half construction zone. So
Wow.
I got the opportunity to see both sides of the spectrum, from a school that has anything that you could think of, every resource, state of the art that looks better than most colleges, to a school that's 100 years old, where we didn't hardly have I didn't even have a computer, or my students didn't even have computers. So
Mm,
it depends on where you are, because it varies so much. It varies from school to school. It varies from district to district. But there are a lot of just general resources that, I mean, it's uh, especially on the elementary level. It probably is not as bad on the high school level, but I know elementary school level, there are a lot of additional resources that students need that we may not need on the high school level. That could be
mm,
just from paper, pencils, crayons,
right.
just those small things. And it may seem, small, but once you start adding that up and you start bringing these supplies in for 10, 15, 20 students, that those things add up. In
Mm-hmm.
my district, I'm gonna be honest, I was blessed where my district paid me well, but there are some other teachers who worked in the industry way longer than me, who have way more experience and are truthfully way better teachers, who made way less money than me.
Mm,
And then they didn't have the resources in their classroom to make sure that so they would take the money that they made, even though it was less than me, and still go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff for their
mm.
students. and
Yeah.
spend money out of their pockets. So a lot of these teachers do it for the love because they understand that teaching is a calling, and they
Right.
truly do it for the outcome and not the income. And a lot of people, quick to judge some teachers, and I mean, sometimes it may be fair, but teaching is a hard job. It's the
Yeah.
hardest job I've ever had, and I've worked in a lot of jobs. As a teacher, teachers work more unpaid job hours than any job that I've ever had.
Dang.
Besides entrepreneurship,
Mm-hmm.
I've
Yeah.
never I've never worked as many unpaid hours as I have being a teacher. Period.
Mm.
Because you have to teach, then you have to grade, you have to assess, then you have to plan. And for me, this last year, I had 183 students.
Oh wow.
Then I was a head freshman football coach. Then I was a yearbook advisor. Then I was a Skills USA FBLA advisor. So I interacted with 250 students on a daily basis.
Wow.
And me personally, I knew that some of my students didn't have resources. So I would go out and buy products and keep them in my classroom: toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant, feminine products. And students knew if they forgot to put deodorant on one day, or they forgot to put deodorant, or they really didn't have it, they knew they could come to
Yeah.
my class and get it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like it was bigger than just teaching and showing up and teaching and relying on the resources that we get from the district or wherever.
Yeah.
It's part ministry too,
Yeah.
because if you are truly in education for the love, and you're truly on purpose in the classroom, and you see a student is hurting, it's hurting you not to help them in some kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that comes at the sacrifice of the teacher, because they don't really have those big huge salaries.
Yeah.
So a lot of these teachers go in their pockets, and I know at least 50 teachers I know that go in their pockets to make sure that these students don't feel inadequate. Because while
Mm-hmm.
one student may have an iPhone, another student don't have nobody in their house has a phone.
Yeah. So
So
I wanted to ask you about that, like when it comes to the inadequacy that you talk about, the students may be feeling because they don't have those resources. We just talked about the educators and their lack of resources. Um, Introduce me into the mind, like what are some of the conversations that you had with students when they did not have resources? Because some of us may have came from backgrounds to where we didn't have to worry about having a pencil, or we didn't have to worry about having a backpack or deodorant or a toothbrush or things like that. But that's not the case for every student. What is it like? How difficult is it for a student to come in and put their best foot forward when they don't even have things personally, in line?
it's almost impossible
Yeah.
for them to put forth their best foot. Let me tell you a wake up call that I had that really changed my perspective in terms of how I interacted with students. Because students carry it well. Like, they're
Mm-hmm.
very resilient, and they don't want you to know what they're going through. So a lot of
Yeah.
times you never really know. It was this one student, when I taught freshman science. There was this one student, um, and he was a senior, and he failed science his freshman year. All he needed to do was pass my science class to get out. It was
Mm.
seventh period, and he slept in my class a lot. But I didn't bother him because he was 18 in the class with a bunch of 14-year-olds. So I thought it would have been goofy to aggravate this man and ride him like I'm doing freshman, because I'm trying to instill something in my freshman students. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
this dude, like 18, he getting ready to graduate. But
Mm-hmm.
he always had his head down in my class. He always sleep. I ain't really say nothing to him. One day, the teacher across the hall said, "Hey, I know that we have this same student. Dude always sleep in my class, and he's not turning in his work. If he don't pass my class, he not graduating." So he's like, "What kind of relationship do you have with this student?" I said, "Man, I have a pretty good relationship with him." He was like, "Would you just remind him that he needs to stay on his grades and this, and this?" So the student came to my class, and I said, "Hey, bro, one of your teachers, was talking about you, and we just want to make sure you stay on point, bro. Handle your business, man. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna ride you hard, but make sure you knock out your business and this. So next day I was like staying on it, like, Cyril, man, stay up, man. Come on, bro. Whoop, 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 whoop. So I was really, not really riding them hard, but kind of like tightening up on them a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, come on, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 days later, the same teacher came to me and said, "Man, I feel like a jerk, man." I said, "Why?"
Mm.
He says, "Man, the student that I was telling you about?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Man, I found out dude is homeless, and he's sleeping in his car every night. His sister is a freshman. He's a senior. He stays up at night to make
Mm.
sure that his sister can sleep and then he comes to school during the day, and the reason he's sleeping in class because he doesn't sleep at night to make sure that his sister does.
Dang.
And now it's like, for me, it was like, man, how many students living like that you don't have no clue? Because had he not come to me and said something to me about that student, I would not have never known that that particular student was going through it. Had I
Wow.
not known that that student was going through it, I wouldn't have opened up and been as empathetic to all of my students, because it's
Mm,
like I have to grant all of my students grace and mercy, because while there are a lot of my students who are privileged, I don't know which one of my students is going through that.
mm,
I
yeah.
don't know which one of them is going through that. But
Yeah.
I know it's somebody out there that's going through it, because it's been proven to me time and time again. But I don't know who it is or where. So there's a certain level of grace and mercy that I learned I have to just extend to all my students. And I did it a lot
Man,
just
that's
because I didn't know.
huge. That's huge, man, because I think that, like you said, you never know. Like you never know what somebody is going through. You know, there's this quote that's saying that everybody out there is fighting a battle that we don't know about, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't know who that person is. So it's important, as you mentioned, to have that grace and mercy. But it's important to be mindful of the way in which we interact with them, to be mindful of the words that we say to them. But I think more importantly, it's important for us to discover. You know, like we just go over here and we assume. I think we need to discover more versus the assumptions that we can make about, a situation, or what a person is or what a person isn't. And so that's just a prime example, man. And if we do a better job of discovering, then it actually can redirect the way in which we interact, the empathy in which we show, in the way in which in the ways in which we can assist, those individuals as they go throughout life. And so, like, with that being said, you've been in the system, in the school systems, doing your thing. Um, what was the highlight that you would say of your teaching career?
Man, I would say that that was this student that one day I'm like the loud high fivey teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Student walking down the hall, he was mean mugging like crazy.
Mm.
Like, so I said something to him. He looked me up and down, right? So me and this student, we had like this crazy blow up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go checking the student, and it just blows up crazy. So now it's like me and this student just having this crazy explosion. So now people shocked, and they just like, oh my God, like I can't believe like Mr. Nelson and this student is getting into it. And so the student, so we end up, so I go talk to the vice principal about it. Like, yeah, I had this crazy blow up with another teacher student. Student's not even my student. So I
Mm.
explained it to him. He says, man, I actually heard about this from another teacher. Another teacher was like, yeah, this crazy thing happened. And then. So I'm talking to the principal, and he says, well, do you want to call the student in? I said, yeah, call the student in, man, so we can talk about it. Student comes in the office, and he's mad, and the student just goes off, and it's just like a screaming match. Like the student's yelling. I'm like, dude, you better watch who you talking to. Like, like we having like
Right.
a real gangster moment with the student,
Yeah.
right? So the student is mad. He's going like just pissed. Just you don't know what students are going through. Blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I see the student, I leave, and I see the student walking by, for weeks, and um we never say anything. He never looks at me. He just walked by my class, going to his classes, always like this mug. And I saw him playing basketball one day, and I saw his effort, and I saw he was really trying hard. So I says, oh man, she's going out for the basketball team. I says, hey man, I saw you going out for the basketball team. Saw you putting in some effort. You losing some weight, bro. I said, you looking good, man. And then he says, he stopped, and he looked at me, and he says, yeah, I ain't made the team. I said, why? He said, man, grades. I said, what's going
Mm.
on with your grades, bro? And then he says, man, couple classes, man, I'm not doing good in, blah, blah, blah. I said, man, I can help you with some grades, but you tripping on some grades, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's stopping you, man. Like, I have a good relationship with all your teachers, so I'm pretty sure that I can help you with the grades. So I was like, man, come by and holler at me. So he looked at me, then he came by, and then he showed me the classes, and I said, all right, this is what we're gonna do. And I gave him a play. I said, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna tell your teacher, listen, I'm Daniel's accountability partner. I
Mm-hmm.
know that he hasn't been doing what he's supposed to do in class, but this is what we're gonna do. So I gave him the play, and we did it. He was able to work with the teachers, get his grades back up, and he went from like literally ready to fight me to like he'll fight you about me right now. Like, you know
Wow.
what I
That's
mean? So
dope.
when the assistant principal saw our relationship, after the initial explosion in his office, he was
Mm-hmm.
blown away. He was like, like, is that the same? Like
Mm-hmm.
he couldn't, you know. And it goes back to something that I heard that says that discipline without relationships equal rebellion.
Yeah, that's big. Yeah.
So I was trying to check him, and I ain't know him like
No
that.
relationship.
But
Yeah.
now that I know him, I could check him, like for real, check
Mm.
him. I could check him harder now than I could then because he knows that it's love. He knows that
Yeah.
I'm not like being a bully. He know I'm not being mean to him. He know that I'm like for real, like trying to make sure he good.
Yeah.
And he wants that now.
Mm.
And to the point that I have relationships like that with other students, and I check them like, bro, you tripping? Like, what you doing over here? Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dude is like, uh, why you? How you do? Can you do that to me? This is what a student asked me. He saw me checking another student, and that's what he
Dang.
asked. Like, can you? Like, he was trying to ask me, like, what? Why are you checking him like
Wow.
that? And can you check me like that if I'm slipping? And I was
Mm.
like, yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
So those are the moments to me where it's like, you know, the lessons where you learn theoretically when someone says discipline without relationships equals rebellion, and you hear it and then
Mm-hmm.
you live it, and then it becomes real. So it's not just something that's theoretical, but it's
Right.
something you learn and apply.
Facts.
So I would say those moments like that would probably be the things that stand out, is just deepening the relationships and seeing what a deeper relationship looks like versus
Mm.
just having a shallow interaction.
Yeah. And I'm glad you actually mentioned that because one thing that I want to highlight for those that may not know is the anomaly of black male educators. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you are obviously a black male educator, but there are they are few and far between. And so, what was it like for you being a black male educator, and what appeal would you have for other black males to actually get into the space? Because there's a great need for men in the school system, especially when you think about it's obviously a lot of people that everybody's in school, but the with the minorities, like they need more people that look like them in the school system. So what was your experience like, and what would be your appeal for other individuals like you to actually get involved?
To be honest, man, I really think that, well, obviously we need more minority men in the education
Mm-hmm.
space beyond PE,
Yeah.
beyond being the discipline guy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we usually the coach, PE, discipline, but we need more black math teachers.
Mm-hmm.
We need more black English teachers. We need more black social studies teachers,
Right.
because if you're looking at having more black math teachers, then that means that we're going to have more architects, we're going to have more
Mm-hmm.
engineers, we're going to have more, if you're looking at having more black English teachers, now we're going to have more black writers, more
Mm-hmm.
people who can control different narratives. We have more lawyers, so not having us present in the education space takes away the influence that comes along with those particular roles. And when they only see us in the role
Yeah.
of discipline or in the role of a coach, which is good because those are positions of authority.
Right.
But I think it just needs to be more of a balance holistically, where they see us in a variety of roles and not just in those limited roles.
Mm-hmm.
And for truthfully, I think that a lot of the experiences that I had outside of the classroom made me a better educator. I think it should be like our civic duty where everybody should have to teach for a certain amount of time, because there's so much that
Mm.
we learn from going through life that you can apply to the classroom,
Right.
that if you just go to school to be a teacher, then there's certain aspects of professionalism in life that you kind of bypass.
Mm.
And we need that holistic approach inside of our classroom.
Yeah.
But definitely more black men. I think 2% of teachers now are black men.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So if you look at our percentage in society versus our percentage of influence in education, then there's a huge imbalance in that space. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that one thing that we have to be conscious of is that education should not be limited to what is taught in the classroom, because
That's true.
I've been in
Yeah.
education for the last 4 or 5, let me see, high school education in 2017. This is 2021, 4 or 5 years. And to be honest, there's a lot that school does not prepare our kids for in society.
Yeah.
And we
Sure.
can't expect the school system alone to be the thing that educates us. So a lot of us need to be the educators within our homes. Like we
Mm-hmm.
need to have home school to complement the schooling, so that way, regardless of whether our kids have a black teacher in the classroom, they'll always have a black teacher,
In the home.
someone that looks
Absolutely.
like them that can share those experiences. So that's one thing we try to do is incorporate homeschool to
Yeah.
make it, teach our kids stuff that they're not gonna learn. They're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna learn about entrepreneurship. They're not gonna learn what the word bank is, what asset is, what a bank account is, what credit is, or what a business. These things they're just not learning. But these are things I think that are important. But all in all, we definitely need more black men in the education space.
Yeah.
It hurt me to leave.
Yeah. I was gonna say. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is because I knew it hurt the students that I was there to
Mm,
serve.
yeah. So
So go
so
ahead.
I was gonna ask you. So let's talk about like you left to do what? So you said it hurt you a little, but obviously there had to be a reason for you to leave. So let's talk about what you transitioned to and why.
I was headed to the next level because I knew that I could impact students within the classroom within that space,
Mm,
but I was ready to impact students on a bigger and a broader level as well as teachers. So I left to go back to what I was doing in education before I became a teacher
okay.
because I was in the entrepreneur space. And when I got in education, I went from servicing corporations to servicing teachers. One thing that I realized about Arizona is that we are ranked. Uh, when I was teaching in 2018, we were 51st in the nation in teacher satisfaction.
Dang.
DC was considered its own school district, so we were 51st. So to me, it was like if I could figure out a strategic way to service teachers and increase the teacher satisfaction, that increases
Mm-hmm.
overall quality of education.
Absolutely.
So I shifted from servicing corporations to servicing teachers. And
Mm,
after being in the teaching space for a while, I felt like I was able to quantize what I took from being an enrollment advisor, my master's in adult education and corporate training, as well as my years in the classroom. And I could put together strategic ways to service the education industry to increase the quality of education.
I love
So
it.
I was getting ready to go full time into education consulting, coaching, and speaking. And my goal was to come service the school holistically, where I'll be able to offer professional development to the teachers, but then also be able to offer my speaking and training programs to the students as well, and
Gotcha.
just be able to come in and service your whole school.
Okay.
So that's kind of the path that I'm still on right now.
Okay, and I want to dive a little bit deeper into why that's necessary because, like you said, you talked about satisfaction scores when it comes or satisfaction when it comes to teachers. But I think there's another element when it comes to that, like why aren't they satisfied? Because if they aren't satisfied, then what are they going to do? They're actually going to leave. The
Mm-hmm.
education space, and when they leave the education space, now there comes a deficit in educators. And if
Yeah,
there's a deficit within educators, now who do we have actually educating our children? You know what I'm saying?
exactly. Yep.
And so, talk a little bit about why there's a need for individuals to increase their satisfaction so that we can actually have educators remaining in the field.
Right now, we have, and just in the state of Arizona alone, we have about 2,500, a 2,500 teacher shortage.
Dang.
And when the teachers are short, that doesn't mean that the students don't get educated. It means that the class sizes are larger. When the class sizes are larger, then that means that the quality of education decreases because the student to teacher
Mm,
ratio
yeah.
now goes down. So opposed to having 25 students in my class, I now have 40. You multiply that over 5 classes, now I have 200 students. So if I have to create tests, if I have to have accountability, if I have to contact parents, if I have to go to meetings, if I have to go through all of these different things for 200 students versus 150 students, then it
That's gonna
changes
be
my ability to service the students in a quality way because
man.
the same energy has to be spread out over more people. So
Mm,
it waters down the ability of me to be able to penetrate into the students more deeply.
right.
And then now it burns me out. So now when I'm tired, it's gonna make me feel like, oh man, I need to get out of here and go do something else because they
Mm.
ain't paying me enough for this. So now,
Facts.
now the teachers will then leave, and then it creates another vacuum where there's a bigger class size because another teacher is gone. So now you got to pack in more students on another teacher, and over time, this cycle just continues.
Mm.
So if we don't have the resources, if we don't have the support for the teachers, then they're going to get burned out. And as soon as they get burned out, they're going to quit, or they're going to decrease the quality of education that they put into our student. And what happens
Mm.
then is it starts a cycle where if you have a decrease in quality in education, you're going to have a decrease in the students, which would decrease the products, which would decrease the
Mm.
services. And then before you know it, our whole society is going to be mediocre based upon the decrease in the quality of teaching that our students are getting from our teachers. But if
Wow.
every teacher went to school every day and they felt motivated, they felt inspired, they felt supported, they felt just encouraged, and they felt on purpose, and like they was going in there to really inspire the next generation of leaders to be the greatest version of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and they carried that with them every day, it's going to increase the quality of education.
Love it.
But when you take that away and you overload them, then it's going to lead to the vacuum that we see now in education, where teachers are like, man, I had enough of this, I'm out.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that, because I obviously see the need for that, and I'm in the the same space as well. And so tell me about refilling the cup of an educator. Maybe some of your experiences that you've had with that, and how you now get that same feeling that you had in the classroom, but in a different way, because now you're able to impact on a larger scale. Obviously, when you're in the classroom, you had, like you said earlier, maybe the 25 or 40 students that you had, but now you get to impact those 1 to 25 ratios, and you can multiply that by how many ever students that they have. Tell me a little bit about your experience with that, and what your goal is overall when it comes to your consulting company.
Well, one thing I want to do is I feel like I have the most opportunity out of any educational consultant in the country at any state, just because our teacher satisfaction is so low. But
Mm.
just working with uh, teachers from a peer standpoint is one level of relationship that you're going to have, because when they hear it from a peer, then that's one level. But when you step outside and then you hear it from someone else who's not necessarily a peer, but they have those peer level experiences that you
Mm.
can relate to, a lot of times it allows teachers uh, to feel more empowered, particularly
Mm.
now, coming from an experience standpoint. If I was to come talk to teachers and I didn't go through the process, it's only a certain level of conversation that I could have.
Yeah.
But now being able to have this conversation is I can understand exactly what you've gone through. I've been through this. I have a story that you can relate to. And now seeing the impact that it has on teachers, and the permission that it gives teachers to stand into their own greatness, that now you can take that and multiply it, because even if I
Mm-hmm.
only taught the two teachers, right, and those two teachers have 150, 200 students apiece, I've doubled my impact versus just me being in the classroom talking to
Mm-hmm.
my 200 students. If I
Right.
talk to three teachers and they take what I give them and they take it and empower it and they give it to the students, now I've tripled.
Right.
Now imagine taking that and multiplying that by the school I just came from, which is 150 teachers.
Mm.
And then taking that to the district that I worked at, that is 6 schools that have 150 teachers apiece. And now
Yeah.
taking that district and multiplying it by 214, which is the amount of districts that we have in the state, it creates a lot of opportunity
Yeah.
for me to have a lot of impact by impacting the people who impact the people
That's awesome. That's
from
awesome.
an experience. Yeah, from an experience standpoint. So my goal is to be able to just start at home, in my community, in my backyard, and empower the teachers that I know,
Mm-hmm.
empower my friends that I know who are in the trenches, empower the school that I came from, empower the district that I came from, and then use that as a way to kind of spread out. We have wildfire fires out here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how fire starts, and then that flame just kind of spreads out. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I'm just start here small, fanning the flames. And
Right.
then before you know it, we're gonna set the whole state on fire. And
Love
we're
it.
gonna have educators motivated, inspired, and we're gonna go from being 51st all the way up to the top.
I
And
love it.
I'm going back to the saying that says, I know Donnie Simpson, our video soul, used to say this. See, you probably don't remember Donnie Simpson, our video
No.
soul. See, this for your time. See, it's for your time. But he used to say, shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll be amongst the stars. But I heard other
Mm,
people use that. But so that's what it is. We started at 51st. We shooting for number one. Say we fall at 20.
mm, yeah.
You know what I mean? We still improve 30 steps. So we're going to shoot
Right.
high. So even if we fall short, then I mean, if we only go to 40, if we go from 51st to 40, who wins? Our
Yeah.
students win. The
Absolutely.
quality of education has improved,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Yeah. And that for the whole state improves as well. And you just mentioned that earlier. And so,
Exactly.
man, I do want to go into this because I feel like it's important to actually talk about this because one thing that I believe is that as we're going down and pursuing our lanes, there's going to be adversity, that we face within our lives. Like we're not just going to jump. We're not just going to go and say, "Oh, this is it," and then it's going to be all, man. This is all great. Everything is no adversity comes, no trial, no tribulation. Everything is perfect. Like that's not how it happens. So I want to actually talk for a moment about the adversity you face after you jumped, if you don't mind, because I heard the story that you had, and man, when I heard that story, man, it's like man, like that's powerful, and not is it just powerful the story, it's powerful your response when you're on there talking on stage. You said, man, even if I only have this amount of time, like I will actually be grateful for this day. And so, will you talk to me a little bit about the adversity you faced and the challenges that you're going through currently?
Yeah, I actually, I left my job. I left the school. I made up my mind I was going to leave the school and go full time in the speaking space. So I really just started investing, started saving my money, flipping my money, so that way I knew that I would be financially stable
Mm-hmm.
enough to leave my job. And I was able to put myself financially in a situation where I was like, man, I could, not have to work for a whole year, even if I don't get any contracts.
Mm-hmm.
I could basically pay myself what my job was paying me for a whole year. So I was like, man, I'm good. Not understanding why I really needed that much money in my account, but I guess God had another plan for me. So I left my job and I started going all in, building my business. But I was sick before, so I was really trying to figure out, what was going on. So I thought it was something with my diet. So I kind of changed up my diet, went vegan, plant-based diet, and just started
Mm.
trying to eat more healthy. And my wife was like, "Well, I still think you need to get checked out." And then the doctor was called a digestive specialist. I don't know what they call those,
Mm.
but he suggested that I get a colonoscopy just to kind of rule out certain things. So I was like, all right, cool. We'll get a colonoscopy just to kind of rule out and try to figure out what's been making me sick. And I went and got the colonoscopy, and when it came back, he told me I had colon cancer.
Mm.
And then from there, it just kept getting crazier and crazier. And then it was like we got the biopsy, so we need to get the confirmation. So at this point, I'm like, all right, I don't have the confirmation, so I'm not claiming cancer. They're gonna tell
Mm.
me a
Yeah.
biopsy. Then I go to the next doctor, and he's like, man, we got to get that out. So you're gonna have to get cut here. You got to go through this, and this, which is the surgery you got to go through. So I'm like, dang. Second one is like, you got surgery. I go to the third one, and she was like, yeah, so you got to go through this, and then we also got to run more tests because we found something else. So I'm like, all right, cool. I come back the fourth time. Third time, I think the fourth time was when I passed out. So one
Mm.
time I passed all the way out. I went to the doctor and they told me the news was so crazy. I couldn't even believe it. She confirmed to me that the biopsy came back and the biopsy confirmed that I had cancer. So that was the first time that I got confirmation
Mm.
that it was cancer. And then she said, and if it's here, then this is what it means. And she put out the chart and she started showing me the surgery that I was going to have. And then she said, but we found something else too. And then she said it moved from your colon to your liver.
Jesus.
And then she started going into this process, and I passed out. Like once I passed out, it was like
Mm.
like I was out, like completely out. And then when I woke up, I had all this stuff on my chest. I had like the little, I guess, EKG machine. I had IV on my arm. I had the doctors asking me questions, that shining light in my face. And I sat up in the chair, and I sat up, man. At first, when I first woke up, it was a feeling I never had before. I literally thought I had died. I was like, "Damn, did I go to heaven?" I was like, "Am I dead?" I was like, "Where am I at?" Like this was just it was a crazy feeling. And when I sat up in the chair, I sat there and I was sitting there for like 2 minutes, and I was just looking at these people, and I just could not figure out where I was, why I was there, what was going on. And she started talking to me, and as she started talking to me, it started to come back. And she was like, "I was here. We was talking about cancer and this," and I said, "Oh my God, it's true."
Mm,
She just told me I got that the biopsy came back and I got cancer. It's confirmed.
mm,
And then she was like, "So we just gonna stop for the day. We're not gonna talk about this anymore. We're gonna get you some IV, get you home, rest, follow it the next week." So the next week when I came in, she was like, "All right, we gotta pick up what we was talking last week. Based upon what we said, you have stage 4 cancer." So she was like, "It started here, now it's here. You got 3 lesions on your liver, and so this is where you are."
mm,
So at that point, I had already made up in my mind that I couldn't just be passing out every time they told me news.
mm,
And at that point, they had gave me bad news every time I went to the doctor. So I just had to assume that it may keep coming. So I said, if it does keep coming, then what? If they keep giving
mm,
you bad news, then what? So I made up in my mind. I was like, man, I don't care what they tell me. I don't even care. It don't even matter. I'm just gonna I'm gonna operate in faith. Like I'm not even gonna be fearful. Like I don't lose no sleep. I sleep good every night. Like I don't be
wow.
losing no sleep. You know what I mean? Like I ain't never lost sleep. You know what I mean? Like I'm not stressed. I said what God's will gonna be is God's will. And what a lot of people neglect to even focus on is the fact that everybody's story ends the same.
Mm,
We all die in the end. So it's not about when I'm gonna die, it's about how I'm gonna live. So I'm more focused on, secure my legacy for 100 years from now versus thinking about whether I'm gonna die tomorrow or not. I'm more focused on like what does 100 years from now look like? Cause everybody gonna be dead in 100 years.
right.
But what are you gonna do today that's gonna keep you alive 200 years from now? Like we all gonna be dead in 200 years. What are you doing today that's gonna keep you alive 200 years from now? 300 years. 300 years from now. Do you have what it takes to establish something in this lifetime that's gonna last 300 years? We all gonna be dead in 300 years. What are you gonna do to make sure you still around 300 years?
Mm,
So that's what I'm on now. It's like how do you solidify your legacy for the long term and not just focus on anything that they say in the short term?
mhm.
Because I'm still here today, so ain't nothing that they could tell me. Because as far as I know, the world could blow up tomorrow, so I can't worry about tomorrow. I can only
Yeah,
focus on today. That's why I
yeah,
say they told me I'm a die tomorrow. Then I'm like, hell, I'm alive today. I'll let
right.
tomorrow deal with itself. And if I die tomorrow, I ain't gonna know, and I'm certainly not gonna spend my last days worrying about that. I'm gonna spend my last
Mm,
days giving God glory, and you know, and striving to get to the next level. You
right.
know.
Man, yeah, when you talked about that, man, it was one of the most powerful things that I've ever heard in my life, man. Because Jeremy was over there talking about what you've been doing, going all in, and just finding out that news, afterwards. And a lot of people can respond in different ways when it comes to that, but your decision, because we choose the way we respond, everybody does. Your decision to choose faith, your decision to choose to focus in on what your legacy can be for the next 200, 300 years. How can you make sure that you're still impacting with the life that you have? And I think that's so dope, and I think that's so amazing. I think it's a huge testament that a lot of people need to embody, not just when we hear bad things, man. How can we live that way right now? You know what I'm saying? Why do we have to hear bad news in order for
Yeah,
us to now have that mindset and now to take that approach, man? Why does it have to be that way? Why can't we just be the greatest? You know what I'm saying? Because that's what our disposition is. That's because what we're about. And the fact that you are doing that right now, man, I just wanted to salute you. I wanted to bring you on to actually talk about that. And so the one thing that I have that I want to sort of ask now is that what advice would you give to somebody that is, going down this path of trying to find their lane, reaching adversity, and kind of in that stuck phase? What kind of motivation, what type of encouraging word, what would you say to somebody that's going through that currently?
well, one of my sayings is that I live by this. You got to go through it to get to it, and there's no way around it. And if you are truly operating in your purpose, there's no way that you can truly get stuck.
Mm.
because you're gonna find a way or you're gonna make a way. And the reason that a lot of people get stuck is because they're operating outside of their purpose. And if you
Mm-hmm.
narrow your scope and you focus in on servicing who you were created to service,
Right.
then there's no way that you could truly be stuck, because there's always a way for you to get to that next level.
Right.
Now, you start operating outside of your purpose, you're trying to go somewhere where you're not designed to go, and you're
Right.
gonna run into a brick wall. But truthfully, if you just stop, get in touch with yourself, because we all have a gift, but we all often confuse our talents with our gift.
Mm-hmm.
So just because you could do something as a talent doesn't mean that that's where your gift is.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we try to operate in our talent zone versus
Mm.
operating in our gift zone. Sometimes they're the same. Sometimes your talent is your gift. Sometimes your gift is your talent.
Mm.
Sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you could do something well. That doesn't mean that that's what God created you to do. Just because I can shoot a basketball don't mean I'm going to the NBA, which I can't
Mm.
shoot a ball for. But I'm just saying, you know. But everybody that's tall is not designed to go into the NBA. So just because you were blessed with something doesn't mean that that's what it is. So once you get in tune with yourself, that's when you can really find out what it is that where your purpose is.
Right.
But a lot of times we get so distracted because our purpose may not be our gift, and our purpose may not necessarily be the cutest thing. It may not be
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
most popular thing, or as
Yep.
people say, it may not be the sexiest thing.
Right.
But when you're operating in your purpose, you know, you there's no compromise there. I have a book. This is my new book that's coming out called
Come on
Cultivating
now.
a Motivated Mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And chapter 8, it talks about no, it's chapter 5. It says, "Do not compromise."
Mm.
So when you get on purpose, then you know you can't compromise that. You
Yeah.
got to get on purpose, and you got to stay on purpose, because as soon as you start thinking about distractions, which is easy to do, because I know we
Yep.
got jobs, and it's like, man, my purpose, I'm gonna do my purpose, and I gotta work too,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yep.
uh, you always gotta make room for your purpose, because whatever you give your attention to is what grows. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're giving a little bit of thought to something, but you're not going all in on it, it's not going to really manifest to the greatness that it should be.
Right.
So get in touch with yourself is one thing I would say, is you gotta really brainstorm, get in touch with yourself, and check your vibrations.
Right.
See what excites you, see what you think about consistently, see
Mm.
what your heart's desire is, and lean into it. Because a
Right.
lot of us have something that we know is our purpose, but because somebody else is not encouraging it, or somebody else
Yeah.
is not supporting it, or somebody else is not cheering it on, then we're not gonna go all in on it,
Yeah.
because
That's
we thinking
facts.
about, what I mean, what somebody else may say. But when
Facts.
you find your tribe,
Come on
find
now.
your purpose within yourself, and find the tribe that's gonna support that mission.
Yeah.
Because if I had a financial goal, and I said, man, my financial goal is $50,000, right? $50,000 a month.
Mm.
But I'm talking to teachers who make $50,000 a year.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be tough.
that's not
That ain't it.
that's not a conversation for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my tribe. But when I come to the next level, and I talk to a Jeremy Anderson and say, "Dang, bro, I want to make 50,000 a month." He's like, "Yeah, I can make that in a day, bro. You could definitely do it in a month." You know what I mean?
Mm.
So it's like you have to find people who can feed your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I use the analogy like it's a garden. You know what I mean? It's like when you go in the garden, you see those beautiful flowers are planted intentionally. The
Mm-hmm.
weeds just grow. So we have to go in and pluck those weeds out and build a garden of support. So that way, you can have a system that supports your crazy dreams or your crazy
Right.
purpose.
Right.
Because
Right.
if it's truly on purpose, it's gonna sound crazy to the people who haven't done it. And a lot of
Yeah.
times we go ask permission. You have $1 million idea, but you'll go ask somebody who only made $30,000-$40,000 a year, is it a good idea? And
Crazy.
expect them to validate it. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, it's a good idea." You know what I'm saying? They gonna be
Right.
like, "Boy,
Right.
you crazy."
Crazy. Facts. That's
And then
facts.
here you go. You're like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I shouldn't." But get in touch with yourself, believe in yourself, find your tribe. Build the people
Mm-hmm.
around you, because everybody not gonna support your crazy. Think about Walt Disney. How many people gonna And think about Jeff Bezos and Amazon. This dude talking about the
Mm-hmm.
internet in 1995. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, that sound far fetched then,
Mm-hmm.
but now it's the norm.
It is. Yep. It definitely is. And I think that's like that's vision. You know what I'm saying? Like we all have vision inside of us, but like you said, some of us choose to introduce those visions to individuals that decided to just maybe play it safe, or those individuals that decided that they weren't going to tap into their gifts, weren't going to tap into their talents, weren't going to pursue purpose. They just decided to live. And you have to introduce vision to other visionaries in order for them to even get you. And I love the fact that you said you got to find your tribe, because there are tribes of visionaries that are out there. And I think that's dope. You got to get around those people, like-minded individuals. Like, that's important. Like, your environment, your circle of influence, like that's going to determine, your altitude and how high you will actually end up going in life. And so, man, this has been a super dope conversation, man. I knew I had that when I met you, man. I came up to you, man. I said, yo, we got to have this conversation. This is that. And I
Yep.
knew what's transpired in this moment. I knew this was going to take place, man. And so I'm grateful to you for, making time, to make this happen. And so, is there any last words you would like to leave with the people before we land this plane?
Oh man, just you got to go through it to get to it. There's nowhere around it. In order to be the greatest, you got to go through a great test. So,
Mm,
no matter what you're going through in this life, you understand that the bigger the trial, the bigger the victory on the other side.
mm-hmm.
So, and also whatever you're going through, do it with dignity and grace, no matter how hard it is, how crazy it is, because you never know who watching. Right
Right.
now, I have to go through it not for the cameras or for the attention of the outside world, but for my kids. I got three
Mm,
kids. My wife pregnant right now. So for me, if my kids see me handle my situation a certain way, it's going to impact them, how they move, and the people they impact. So for me, it's like whatever you go through, it's part of our test. You got to have a test. You have a testimony. In order to be the greatest, you got to go through a great test. So,
mm.
embrace the testimony and understand that if you keep the faith, that no matter what you go through, you'll make it out on the other side. It may not look exactly how you want it to look, but if you
Mm.
keep the faith, then there's nothing that is put in front of you that you can't eventually get behind you.
I love it. I love it. I love it, man. And so for those, man, I want people to connect with you, man. Y'all got to connect with this brother, man. And so, where can we find you at, man? You got a book. You tell us where we can actually find not only you. How can we find your services, your products? Said, man, I want to know everything. Tell us how we can actually find you.
It's right here. Let me cover up the MA part right there. Being Ydrate Nelson, if you see that,
Mm-hmm.
.com
Okay.
or at Ydrate Nelson on Instagram or at Ydrate Nelson on Facebook or at Ydrate, just my first name on Twitter. So,
Okay.
but you can always go to Ydrate.com, which is just my first name, last name.com. And all of my links are there, phone number, email, social media links, everything is right there. So you can just go to my website, YdrateNelson.com.
I love it. I love it. I love it, man. And so I like to end every one of these segments with just kind of like a synopsis of what we talked about. And man, I think the biggest thing that I took away from what you talked about was this whole element of like your gift, right? You talked about purpose and at the very beginning of it, and you have to operate within your purpose. Like, everybody should be doing that. But then you said not only should you find your purpose, which is your lane in life, but then you said also get in the right communities. Like, so many of us aren't necessarily getting to where we want to be in life, not because it's not available to us. It could be because we're not operating within that gift that God has given us, or it could be that we're not in the right, communities, not in the right circle of influence. And so, if you've heard anything that he said tonight, make sure you tap into your gift and make sure you tap into a community. And if you haven't tapped in yet, go ahead and find you one. Like, you deserve it to be around people that actually feed your dreams. Like always, I thank you so much for your time. And this is another segment of the Identify Your Lane podcast. We're out. Peace.